And now, the news. I got a call from a friend of mine today. He said, Tom, he said, you want to have some fun? I said, who is this? He said, well, you haven't heard from me for a couple of years. And so he basically thought that I wanted to have some fun today like I haven't had already. He said, what do you know about HJR2? Well, these days it seems like there's so much going on that there's a lot that seems to slip under the radar. And it's no wonder how we're ended up in the shape that we're in these days, as people tend to write bills and pass bills and all of that, and the people are confused and ignorant to some degree and just busy trying to grasp onto things and deal with the things that they have within their scope of understanding. He said, I want you to have a little fun with HJR2. And I said, well, what's HJR2? I said, is that a federal or state? He said, no, it's an Idaho thing. He says it's called Idaho's Regulatory Freedom Act. And I laughed a little bit and I said, you're kidding me, right? Now by definition, in order to protect our freedom, they're going to call it the Idaho Regulatory Freedom, to be able to regulate our freedom so that we can remain free. I mean, if that's really true, I don't even know where to go with that, you guys. So anyway, he proceeds to tell me this. He says, HJR2 is called the Regulatory Freedom Act. He said basically what it does is it allows the appointing of heads to agencies. The legislature actually acknowledges and asks for rules and regulations by these agencies so that the legislature can consider passing them. In his particular instance, his personal instance, he basically stated that the DEQ came over to his business and basically told him that he couldn't do what he was doing because he was in violation. And basically what happened was the DEQ actually said that he didn't have a permit for his particular business. Well, come to find out, he did a little research and he found out that he was actually exempt from the rules on what he considered page 3 under the department, because he was covered under the Department of Agriculture. Well, basically what ended up happening was, it says that they basically said that the DEQ had an MOU with the DOA. In other words, the Environmental Quality, Department of Environmental Quality had a memorandum of understanding with the DOA. Sounds like a lot of SOL, BFD, right? But you know what's funny is they didn't. And so basically it says that they were in violation. Well, come to find out, now they have an MOU because the county ended up taking them to court and they lost because of the fact that they didn't have it. It's a little complicated, but I think you'll get the basic gist of the confusion involved. And they basically didn't file against them until they finally got one. So the DEQ finally got an MOU with the DOA, and so now he's questioning the legislative delegation to the agencies to be able to delegate authority to other agencies. So let me get this right. So the legislature feels that it has the lawful authority to delegate power and authority to other agencies, which then believe that they have the delegated authority to create other agencies to be able to write rules and regulations that govern your life and mine. Do you see how crazy this is? HJR2 actually evidently creates legislative review as part of the Constitution, or it confirms that, right? I think if I read it right. And it says that they have the legal authority to be able to reject the rules that have full force and effect of law, which should be definitely questioned, considering the redundant delegation of authority to agencies that never probably should have existed in the first place. And so I decided to do a little bit of research, and I haven't done too much, and I haven't referred to the state constitution, so this may be a bit preemptive, but I tend to get a little excited about stuff like this, and so I thought that I would do a preemptive run through this and to see if I can get some correction from you guys on this. The Idaho Legislative Delegation of Rulemaking Amendment HJR 2. The measure would have empowered the state legislature to delegate rulemaking authorities to executive agencies or to approve or reject administrative rules. Now, wait a second. When I talked to our own state attorney general, Lawrence Wasden, he said the biggest problem, Tom, that we have in Idaho is the fact that people believe that administrative policy is law. Now, this is extremely dangerous to the liberty of the average American because there's no differentiation between law and policy anymore. There's no differentiation between the administrative rules and how they affect people, or the administrative agencies that create these rules that were only supposed to govern the agency that created them. This is in the words of the Idaho's Attorney General that I had in personal conversation with two other of his people that were there. And now they're talking through this like this thing is just it's all lawful and all of that. Shall Section 3 of the Constitution confirm that the legislature may authorize executive rulemaking? If the executive is going to make rulemaking, then why doesn't it apply to the agency itself, and how can it possibly apply to the people when the people aren't even aware of what's going on when the rulemaking is done out of the legislative session? Now, I'm not an attorney here. I'm just asking some questions. But the legislature shall not relinquish oversight. Oh, really? Even when you have dollar signs in your face? Or accepting federal funds or whatever it is that you're doing? This is insanity. So Senator McKenzie and Representative Lorsher are involved in this, and they're talking about when the executive agencies create rules, the legislature should have the ability to reject those rules. Well, then why have the executive branch do it anyway? If they're going to be talking about how this Constitution mimics the federal Constitution, then we ought to understand the first fundamental premise here. And that is that the legislature is the only lawful branch of government that can write law. Why would we delegate authority to a different branch of government and then be able to try to say, oh, but we still have the ability to be able to review the laws? They don't even review the laws on the books now. We've got our own legislature that says, oh, we just get too many bills to be able to read them all. And now we're just going to go ahead and delegate authority to somebody else to be able to create agencies that are receiving federal funds? We better start looking into who's benefiting from this and following the money. And if it's anything like those things with the non-for-profits that we've been finding out, you're going to find out that they might not be getting paid directly out of pocket, but they're benefiting in some other way. I could go on forever on this, and I'm already at 8 minutes. Like, oh, they could remove the legislature's ability, like the Supreme Court. Like the Supreme Court can remove the ability for the legislature? Are you serious? Legislative review. Do you know what happened with the judicial review when that got established, didn't you? That's when the Supreme Court got all of its power and decided to be able to contort the original meanings of the Constitution. The executive branch agencies write and adopt rules. When is that supposed to be allowed? I looked in the Constitution. I don't see the executive branch's ability to write law. I thought that was the people's authority to do that. Or we would end up with nothing more than a tyrant king. New administrative rules and regulations. Oppress the people. No differentiation in the classification of law. No public law, no private law, no administrative law, no anything. It's all applying to the people, right? Are you guys seeing the depths of despotism in the reddest state in the Union? I'm wearing a red shirt to celebrate communism, folks. Idaho is not a free republic like they claim that it's going to protect us. It protects the special interest groups and lines the pockets of our legislators or whoever it is that it does. This is garbage. So anyway, I thought I'd give you guys a rant on this. You guys should probably look into HJR 2. You guys should be mad as hell. I don't care if you're a diehard commie or a progressive, or you're a Democrat, or you're a Republican, or whatever it is that you are. You better start paying attention to this, because HJR 2 is a nightmare, and it's a complete subversion of the Constitution. Not that I believe that the Idaho Constitution is that great in the first place. But anyway, it's Friday. I'm on a rant, guys, and I hope you are too. God bless you. I love you, and God, that really pisses me off. If I'm wrong, make sure you tell me. Love you. Bye.